Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully, this is coming across on Facebook and YouTube on the group. I hope, not on the charity. That's what I asked for this time. We are watching the comments, so if you guys can see this, somebody post hello. If anybody would like to join, like if you realize you had something you really wish you could join, I will post the StreamYard link in the posts here. So that'll end up putting it on the. Hi, John. How are you? So here's the StreamYard. And so you're welcome to click there. We've got the people that I expected here already have spots, so I don't have to worry about flooding this. And I will go ahead and try and find on Facebook the Facebook post, because I don't think StreamYard can post to a group. I think that's one of the limitations. They don't let the API post to groups, only to pages and individuals. So I will go ahead and manually post this down in the Facebook group. So feel free to join there. I apologize again. I've done this a lot recently for the coughing. Believe me, it irritates me far more than it irritates you. But today we're going to talk about the tool that Antoinette asked for helping alert caregivers and others in the area when EyeGaze users' devices become unavailable. And we've had some good conversations recently on the GitHub group for this. And I'm going to go ahead. We've got a bunch of people, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on everybody else here. So here's all the other folks and say hi. We're going to go to a kind of a round robin, probably do some introductions real quick. For those following along at home, there is a GitHub page for this that looks like this. Hopefully that is visible and reasonable. It's got like the basics here. And under the discussion, you can catch up with our discussions about liability and iMobility videos and this general discussion, which has had actually quite a bit of commentary. So I'll post the link to this in all the areas as well, including up here on the Facebook group. Okay. So I see those. Hello, Kristen. How are you?
Hi, good.
So we're going to go ahead and go around and do some introductions first. Everybody wouldn't mind being muted until it's kind of your turn to do your introductions. Let's start with me. I'm Bill from AT Makers. A lot of you guys will probably know who I am. I run Lesson Picks and AT Makers, and I kind of one of the managers of the group, AT Makers group on Facebook. So I've offered to help try and coordinate this. Probably what makes sense, I think, would be Antoinette, if you want to not only say who you are, but you're the one who asked for this. So it might make sense for you to give a little longer introduction and explain what we're trying to do here and what your role was.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. I really appreciate everyone taking out the time to have this discussion. So my name's Antoinette Verdone. I am an engineer by trade and an ATP, and I own Improvability, which is an assistive technology consulting and sales company. One of the big areas of work that we do is communication devices, and we work a lot with people with ALS. So it's come up too many times now, and I'm the one that gets the irate emails, which is understandable, and also the texts and the calls saying, my EyeGaze system stopped working. I've had situations where, husband has ALS, wife is less than a foot away from them. They cannot get that person's attention because, the device can stop for many reasons. Right now, well, up until recently, all EyeGaze systems are Windows-based devices. Toby does have an iOS-based device right now, but most of the devices out in the wild are going to be Windows-based devices. So as we all know, there's many pieces and parts that can fail with that. So when they lose, we have clients that when they lose, EyeGaze is their only access method. They have no other switch solution. So those are the people that we're trying to find a solution for the problem of when my EyeGaze communication device stops working, how do I get I'm saying a person's attention. It could be to restart the computer. Yeah, I don't want to jump to what the solution should be, but the problem is my eye gaze system stopped working. And I need some way, and the only access method I have is eye gaze.
Or eyes.
Use of my eyes. Yes.
Right. Yeah. You're gonna hear me kind of push people back onto rails tonight on things like that. But yeah, eyes, right? And your original request was a little bit more specific, and I agree with you on one thing. Just for a second, one is we shouldn't be focusing on what gets done when the alert happens. We know that if we can do one thing with an alert, we can do a myriad of things. That's geek stuff. It's easy. It's more a matter of how do we extract that intention of that person to, I'm having trouble with my primary device. I need some help, whether that's sending a text message or ringing a bell or restarting the machine, whatever it is. The real challenge here is going to be on the input side of that, not on the output, right? All right, let's go on with the intros. So how about Ron? I don't see him on here. Is he here? Oh, Ron. Oh, I got to re-add him. There you go. Sorry about that, Ron. You were here and then you weren't, and now you're back.
Yeah, I was having some communication difficulties.
All good. All right. So who are you? What are you doing?
My name's Ron Nelson, and I am a longtime maker who has recently got into the ATEC world and kind of I'm sick of making clocks and other gadgets. I'd rather make stuff that people can use. So I've changed my whole focus. I've kind of had a midlife crisis, and I'm focused on the ATEC world. So programming, 3D modeling.
So we need to take advantage of your midlife crisis and extract as much out of you as we can before you completely.
Before I move on, before I buy a car or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Or your new girlfriend.
Right.
So yeah, no new girlfriends. That would ruin everything. All right, Nachum, and I'm sure I'm butchering your name. Let me throw you up here next.
Hi, I'm Nachum Lehman. You gotta get the mic wet in order to say it right. And I'm technical director of Bridging Voice. I've been doing assistive technology for about 27 years. For the last 17 years, I've been working a lot with ALS patients. But since we started Bridging Voice in March of 2019, we've worked with close to 1,200 ALS patients. So we have we have some good data on a lot of the needs here, and we work together with Antoinette a lot and a lot of special people. So this is really going to be a productive meeting.
Excellent. And Nachum, where are you located?
Brooklyn, New York.
I'm heading there tomorrow. Look at that.
Look at that.
I'm going to see. You're all going to be jealous if I tell you what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to the dress rehearsal and premiere of Into the Woods with Sarah Bareilles and Neil Patrick Harris. Is that his last name? Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, wow.
Doogie Howser. So at the New York City Center. It's going to be freaking amazing.
That's a hookup, man. How do you get that hookup?
So I will tell you all a tip. This is way off topic. I'm sorry. I will tell you all a tip. The New York City Center, which is like an inexpensive city-centered, city-funded theater in New York. It's wonderful. It's been around forever. I went to buy tickets to Into the Woods, but they were only selling them to members. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll become a member. I live in Florida, and I'm not really going to spend this kind of money. But I called to see what the membership would cost because it was early time to buy. And the guy on the phone, I told him I'd seen Waitress a bunch of times, and I was a big Sarah Bareilles fan, and he was too. He said, if I were you, I'd get a gold membership. And I'm like, oh, how much is a gold membership? And he says it's $500. I said, well, why would you get a gold membership? He goes, because you get free tickets to the dress rehearsal. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that 1 year, right? Absolutely. I've paid more money than that for good seats. And the dress rehearsals just... So that's my tip to all of you. The New York City Center Gold memberships comes with free one free dress rehearsal per year for 2 people. So there you go. All right. So Nachum, I will be in New York tomorrow. Probably not see you. but
Okay, but I'll wave.
you can wave. Yeah, there you go. All right. Let's do. Let's see. Alyssa, you're or Wendy. Wendy, you're the next one up from here. Hi, Wendy.
Hi. So my name is Wendy Allen. I'm from the Hattiesburg, Mississippi area. I've been an occupational therapist for 24 years in the traditional hospital-based setting. And most recently, I've started working with Antoinette Verdone at Improvability and am working with ALS clients. And just excited that I'm invited to this because I'm going to soak up as much information as I can. I too have also had clients that have, asked or have, stated that they wish they had another access method, or not access method, but a way to get help or to, to get someone's attention if their device does a thing, whatever it does.
Right.
And so I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say.
Excellent. All right, let's see Lizzie, because I know that Lizzie was saying she needed to bail. Go.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, I'm Lisi Lilienfeld. I'm a product manager at Google, and I built an app called Project Activate, which is addressing really this same concern. I'm sorry that I can't stay on the call for the discussion, but I'm certainly happy to kind of be involved in the conversation. GitHub, LinkedIn, whatever people want.
Have you joined the GitHub yet?
I did comment on it. Yeah, I'm Lisi Ray
Excellent.
on GitHub. Yeah.
Do you know Dmitry Votanchev?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will probably lean on him at some point. He's wonderful.
Yes.
A really great resource for our group.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I'm sorry you can't make it. Please watch the recording and comment below the recording if you have thoughts where we were off topic, off base. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Good to
All
see
right.
everyone.
Yeah, it's all good. Let's see. How about Alyssa?
Hi, guys. I'm Elisa Brownlee. I'm an assistive technology specialist. I've been with the ALS Association for 25 years, and I have been begging for probably 20 of those years for an eye-activated call bell system, based on what everyone is saying, what we've heard from people with ALS, but also their caregivers. I have caregivers who get up every hour on the hour to make sure their loved one's okay if they can no longer call for help. And I also have a significant number of people who only have eye movement that are in nursing homes. And Medicare doesn't pay for an eye gaze when somebody's in a nursing home. So yeah, we might be able to get a loaner if the nursing home will support it. So this could really help people, not only with ALS, but other people who have locked-in syndrome.
Yep. Yeah, and SMA as well. We have one of our most prolific makers is dealing with this issue in the evening, because at night his cuff gets inflated, and so his voice is gone at night, and this is becoming a challenge for him as well. So yeah, while a lot of people on this call are ALS, this is not an ALS problem. This is a severe motor impairment problem, more than anything else. All right, Jake, I see you're here. Hi, Jake.
Hi, I'm Jake McIver. I work for Neil Squire in the Makers Making Change program as a mechanical engineer / sort of biomedical engineer. We have that big library of assistive devices, and we are often involved. So I thought it'd be a good chance to touch base with this one, because you can definitely see a need.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think that's everybody who's on here. We lost at least one person. If they pop back on, I'll have them drop back into introductions. Let me see if this is a better. No, it's not. So we'll go back to this one. All right. So I appreciate everybody being on the call. We have had a lot of conversations, and for those of you who aren't on the call, type your questions in or join. You're welcome to. I can't kick this cough in the next week. I don't know what I'm going to do. I do not have COVID. I just have a cough that I can't kick, and it's driving me berserk. If you have comments, feel free to post them in the thing. I can't. Let me share this screen. That one. All right. Yep. All right. So I think we want this one. Yeah. So this is the GitHub repository we put together. For those of you who are not actively involved, up here. So if you're GitHub, you do have to sign in and create an account. We are adding anybody who wants to be a part of this this repository. There's no requirements here. Ideally, this is also where the solution will live. This name may change. It was a placeholder, and it's fine where it is. Antoinette's original problem statement is listed on the front page, and I will refer back to it repeatedly if we start going too far afield, which we tend to because we're engineers and geeks, and I say that lovingly to everybody. Up here at the top, there is a discussions tab, and everybody is always welcome to create new discussions or comment on the ones we have. We've had two active ones, two really active ones. The general discussion that we started with, and then one about liability. And what I'd like to do today, if you guys are okay with it, I'd like to make a statement about liability, and then I would like to table it. Okay. I I think I might realize better than most how much trouble liability wise this can be. Right. I went to law school last year in order to get a handle on the liability concerns of AT makers. I won't be finishing my law degree, but man, I learned an absolute ton while I was there. And I realized that there are liability concerns for this device. We will have to have warnings. We will have to have labelings. And there may be situations where we can't deploy this safely, legally safely. At the moment, this will only be an addition, right? This is something where right now there is no way to do the alerting. So we can only make things worse, only make things better. We cannot make things worse at the moment. We can't, down the road, we could make things worse by giving a false sense of security. And with the exception of that thing to keep in mind, I'd like to focus on how to actually solve this problem and circle back around with some friends from the legal world to solve the greater question of, okay, now there is a solution, but we are going to have trouble with deployment to cover our own asses. And we do have to do that. But I don't want to derail to the point where we decide we can't do this. Okay. So does anybody have a problem with tabling that for today? No. Okay.
No, I mean, the more I thought about the liability, I watched that video, which is really great. And it kind of got me in a good headspace, but for this use case, it is meant to be an addition. Now, could it be a standalone product? Yeah, it could. But if it's meant to be a secondary option, then it is literally being the redundancy. So there's that.
Yeah, I agree with that argument. And I would like somebody with more letters after their name to make that argument, right? With more like JD after their name, ESQ after their name, right? But I agree with that. I also agree we can't leave it with our belief that that's the case. And I don't think we have to do that at the beginning of this. Because here's the thing. Let's pretend for a minute that we get through this entire thing. We have a good solution and we can't individually deploy it because we're worried about the risk. We're still in a better position because we will have given a real solution to people who are willing to spend money on products liability insurance or are willing to take it on individually to have it built on a for hire basis. We will have helped some people, no matter where we end up. Right now, and we may have disagreement on this, but right now there isn't a readily available standalone item, with the possible exception of Project Activate, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, today, that solves this problem well. Okay? So let's talk about two ways that this got started and where we are. And Nachum, I think you're going to be the loudest voice on the Project Activate, so I'd like you to give an overview. But I want to specify what Antoinette's first request was. Right? So Antoinette, what you first requested was, I'd like a device that watched for a user to look in a specific space and if they look there long enough, send a alert, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And my response to you was looking in a particular direction is eye gaze, and it is harder. What about other things that can be done with the eyes, like long blinks, winks, patterns of that kind of thing, which are easier for devices to detect? And you said you don't care as long as it's eye based. It would certainly serve a lot of your folks as long as it was eye based, which made me think about ways I could do it. And then it also led, I think, to Nachum. I'll get it by the end. I'll get the in there eventually, I promise. I'll get wetter and wetter as we go. If it starts making me cough, I'm going to say your name wrong. But we got some information about the Google product that is trying to solve the same or a related problem. Okay. So, Nachum, can you give us a basic overview of Project Activate? Because your response was a lot of this is covered by Project Activate. We need to take a better look at it. And I assume you've done that since you said that. Yes.
Yeah, somewhat. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a lot of the testing when they were making it, and it was very promising and encouraging then. So over the last day or two, so I did some more playing with it. So basically, and now it's just a more official product. It really is just a gesture-based activator for an Android, freely available app that you tell it what gesture you want it to track, whether it's raising the eyebrows, a smile, opening your mouth, looking to the left, looking to the right, looking up, down. And any of those gestures can go and make the Android either say something, send a text message, or play an audio file. They have like a feature. I remember actually, this is one of the features that we asked for all the way in the beginning, that you should have to repeat the gesture twice to confirm that you really mean it. And that was put in there. So it works really well. It works surprisingly well. Let's put it that way. And we know that they do have some unofficial additions to that app, which allow it to reboot a computer or an eye tracking device. And some people that were doing some beta testing for Google did use it like that. So the nice part about it is you take a cheap Android, a cheap mount, and you just put it in front of someone. You do get this functionality to be able to alert someone relatively quickly. It's not, but it's still an Android. And as Antoinette said, the app can crash. And depending on what you're trying to do with this, I guess that's where the questions come up. If it's just like one of the things we mentioned in the discussion, if it's just to take care of those situations where the eye tracker fails, which is not the most common occurrence that an eye tracker should fail. So then already, between the eye tracking reliability and the reliability of the Android and the Project Activate, you may get to a statistically safe place. I don't like saying that, but maybe you get to as good of a place as a hardware solution.
Yeah. So I think that I guess my question would be, is it working in the field, right?
It is.
Okay.
It is. I don't know. That Lizzie would have been really helpful for that one. But they had, as of I'm bad with time, but probably about a year and a half ago, I know they had a few dozen people using it. When you go on Google now, so I think they've got, it's been downloaded thousands of times. It's hard to know who's using it, but I think we have maybe a dozen clients that are using it. We've never officially installed it ourselves for anyone. It's just the more tech savvy pals have installed it by themselves. And we've heard good, we've gotten good feedback about it.
I mean, I have to say, just the little testing I did, I can't, I'm on my computer, I can't turn it, but I mean, I just had an old Android phone sitting there, and I mean, it worked for many days. and then, I was trying to push it. So I just kind of let it sit there. I would look at it a couple times. I think it was probably maybe day 4 or 5. Out the corner of my eye, I noticed that the app closed. So I restarted it, and it probably was like another 4 or 5 days. The app closed again. It went back to the home screen. So the phone, I set it so the phone wouldn't turn off. So the phone stayed on the whole time. So, I mean, but as far as I was like, I'm going to say 5 feet away, and it would pick up me looking up. Like that was the gesture I was doing. So I was very impressed with it picking up, and I like that it makes you do it twice, because that, it was picking up a lot of things. When I would just turn my head, it would give the beep, and I'd have to do it a second time. So, I mean, as a system, I think it works really well. But it's got its pros and cons, like everything in life has pros and cons.
Sure.
And I would add to that, my concern is that, and I'm going to speak from the ALS side, notoriously weak neck muscles. And I would be concerned about trying to use this with somebody in bed that's really positionally challenged, because it's not a wearable. If they started slipping throughout the night, what if they go out of camera range? Then they have nothing.
Yeah, but I think that's going to be true. So, okay. So the alternative would be a true wearable.
Correct.
In a form of a glasses or something on the face.
Correct.
Okay.
And with all these sensitive switches, I mean, people will say, well, why don't you use a scatter switch? Even though I know that's not commercially available more, but there are IR switches out there. They are very, very, very difficult for a caregiver to consistently position. Yeah. So I think that's why thinking along either eyes open, closed, or some sort of gaze could make it easier to set up for a caregiver.
So I will tell you, we have a I'm pretty sure you know this, Antoinette. So Chris Young, who I was hoping might join us, he might not. It's not a good time for him. This time of day is not a good time for Chris. But we actually were having an issue with his ability to activate his switches when he literally had a respiratory infection, took away his stamina to the point where moving his fingers was compromised. And so what we did was we took the sensor that we used with Ella, the cheek sensor, and we put it on a pair of glasses, one on each side, and he has right, left, and both blinks. Those are hard blinks, right? He has the ability to do like a true hard infrared blink. In other words, a blink that activated the infrared sensor. And that is a pair of glasses. We can certainly take that and make that a secondary option, or an additional option that separately solves a related issue, right? Which is when cameras aren't the right answer. And Chris does wear that all night. So he wears his glasses all night, which I was surprised by, but it's, if he doesn't, he can't see his cough drop tablet, even to do switch scanning, right? He has to be able to see. He's got vision issues too. So he does wears his glasses anyways at night. So I think we can roll that into this discussion, whether it's rolled into the technical solution or not. But that is something that literally took the idea of the scatter switch, a modern sensor instead, a very inexpensive sensor, and has put that to use recently, very recently. Last couple weeks, he's gotten that working well. So I'm happy to publish that and put that information back out there as he is more successful with it. So Lisa, maybe that's something we should put into trial somewhere where you are as well. Obviously, we would want to do these trials in a non-emergency setting, right? Where we're trying with folks where they're actively during the day trying to do something else, and we're giving them another switch point. That happens to be one that would be useful in the evening or when their device goes down.
So what's required to activate that switch?
A hard blink. But okay, so in the case of Ella, what's really, so from a geek perspective, very small proximity changes is really what it is. So you've got a proximity of a millimeter or two change you can have depending on how much the person moves. In the case of Ella, she raises her cheek, and the proximity sensor on that infrared sensor is down to the millimeter or so range, and you can trigger on activation, or you can trigger on differential, which is what we're doing with her. When it sees a significant change in the proximity, it triggers, right? And so that's what she's doing. What he's doing is the same thing, but he's using a hard blink, right? So you have to be able to do a blink that actually changes the position of the interocular skin, whatever that's called. I'm sure somebody here can give a better, let me.
So it's physically getting closer to the sensor.
It is, yes, by millimeters, right? So
right.
It's looking here, and it's physically, and it could be getting further away. It's changing, is what it is. It's changing the distance from the sensor to the skin, is really what it is.
Okay.
You follow that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a poor man's scatter switch.
Well, I like to see it's an improved scatter.
Improved. Can you adjust the sensitivity?
So it's in software. It's Python. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you can do a ton more in terms of customizing the activation on it than you ever could do with the scatter switch. You don't have a knob, right? You don't have a potentiometer to change it. You've got parameters in a text file instead. But yeah, you can change all kinds of things. The biggest difference for me was when we went to differential activation, meaning it's not a matter of when it gets closer than 3 millimeters. It's a matter of when it has changed rapidly enough, right? When the change is fast enough, that activating on differentials, activating on the slope of the distance rather than on the distance, activating on the change makes an enormous difference on how effective that switch is. I think that's going to be true on lots of switches, right? The ability to activate on the change is huge.
So you have to do it quickly.
So,
is that I'm assuming that would be programmable as well.
It is programmable as well, right? And so we can walk through that as do
you want to? I'm wondering, could you show those videos, those eye gaze videos? Because that might give us something to look at if someone's never seen someone who only has eye gaze or eye movement.
I have a sure. Let's see.
Push the buttons, do the things.
Push the buttons, do the thing. Yeah. Let's see. I have the thing. Well, here's one.
So Wendy actually took this video the last time she was at this client's house. And he actually has really good eye mobility. And my memory is he can close his eyes, but he doesn't close them 100%.
So that wouldn't matter for this. I don't think. Let me see. I have my final video here. It gave me this really weird answer that said the codec needed is not in your browser, which was freaking fabulous. Such a great answer. But
sounds like a Windows Media Player message.
Right? Yeah, right. So here, let's see if I can. This one, it seems to like. I'm still talking here.
I'm sorry. I meant the eye gaze videos I had put in the GitHub.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. I'll be happy to do those as well.
But yeah, no, this is good.
Here, I just want to show you this.
Okay.
Right here. Here. So let me just play this first, then I'll go find yours. But I'd show you a little bit of that video here. But currently, it is looking at Ella's cheek, and when she smiles, yay, it gives enough of a difference that we can see it here. There it was. All right. So now, while we're talking, you see this, that is steep enough, regardless of the distance. The change is steep enough that we were able to activate on it, right? And this change back was steep enough that we could click off. That's really what we're saying here, is that this slope was, the absolute value of this slope was high enough that we activated on it. And this was in the opposite direction, and its absolute value of the slope was high enough that we turned off on it. And that's what really made an enormous difference on the way we were doing that. Now, as far as you were showing, Let me go back to this for a second. I've actually never, I've never done this. I've never shared videos on StreamYard. I'm really glad it worked. Let's see, DS. You want the iClose or the DS iMobility one?
Actually, his eye mobility is really good. So if you want to show the eye close,
All
that
right,
would be
let's
the
see.
thing that's not the normal, quote unquote.
Good job, Mr. Dave. Yes, sir. There you go. Oh, well done.
So that to me does not seem like it's a good candidate for. Sorry, Elisa, I'm putting you back in. Sorry. That seems like the change would be slow enough that would be very difficult to detect using the infrared sensor. On the flip side, I think that a camera that's detecting eyes would lose them when his eye finally closes, and would see them again when they finally came back.
I guess that was a question I had. Like, things that are looking for eyes, how much of the eye has to be visible?
Right.
Yeah, that's really good. He's
Right.
closed enough that anything is going to lose his eye.
Yeah. So John Jordan says the blinks are slow. Eye movement seemed good. I would agree with that. And Jay Beaver says one of the interesting aspects of Project Activate is that it uses a trainable machine learning system to detect actions, which is there's pros and cons.
Scary.
Of that.
A little scary.
Well, there are pros and cons to that. That's really what it is. So that's true of anything with TensorFlow in it or anything like that, in that it gives us the ability to detect something very specific to a person, but it requires a training step there's a level of unknown in that where over time it can overlearn, right? It can be overtuned and then lose activations as well. While I'm here, I guess I might as well show the other video for the iMobility one. Let's see if I can get back to this.
And this is just one person with ALS. Everybody's different, but
Of course,
this is kind of our test case.
Yeah, his look up would be enough to activate a properly positioned infrared sensor, right?
So
his look up. If you look right there,
yeah.
So if you positioned, let me see if I can pause this for a second when he does it. All right. So if you position an infrared sensor looking right here, right above his eyebrow, that actually could probably work. Positioning it would be difficult, but I think that would be worth trying as a backup as well. Malcolm, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Project Activate would also capture the eyebrows raising. So you get two ways of doing that.
Yeah. How do you think they do with the glasses?
They do the eyebrows are not a problem. I mentioned in the thing, my beard gave the mouth open a real work for its money.
You know what? I'm willing to tell the ALS SMA CP person who's got this particular problem, I'm sorry, but you have to shave your beard. I'm going to be the bad guy. I'll do it. I'll take the
sidebar. We actually tried. I was at his house, this same client, and we were talking about all kinds of things. And I mean, I actually don't know how long, but I'm going to say he's probably almost a 10-year eye gaze user. So he's a very experienced eye gaze user. Right. And he was having me train stuff and change edit his pages and all this. And it's one of those things that, like, if I asked him, he wouldn't have told me, but I'm observing him and I noticed that he could do that. And I was like, hold up. Can you close your mouth? And he was able to close his mouth and open it. And so we actually tried using a bite switch, which was technically successful, but at night when he's under duress, he has uncontrollable clenching of his jaw. So I thought we had found the holy grail switch for him, and it technically worked. When he was up and alert, he could activate it, no problem whatsoever. But then at night, he would clench his jaw, and the wife said, he keeps setting it off all the time. So he was just having uncontrollable muscle activations.
So one of the other things that is worth bringing up, and this is something that I see Jay Beavers is in the in the chat as well, and something for Lissy. Is it Lissy? Lizzie or Lissy? Something to bring back to Google as well, and other device manufacturers. One of the things about the that differential activation we talked about, activating on the slope, is that it can, every day your positioning is going to be different. Every day it's going to be slightly off. Activating on the change can actually deal with that change happening over the course of a day. Your baseline can change, and it doesn't affect it like a straight positioning would, or like that switch. Like that switch, a byte switch can give you a variable input, right? Depending on what kind it is, but unless it's a true bulb that's got a read switch on it, if it's a FSR or whatever else is inside of it that's measuring the pressure, again, you're getting a variable input. You can do exactly the same math that we did on that infrared. And I wish more of these devices out there. It's a microcontroller. It's on there. You have a microcontroller on there because it's cheaper than an analog to digital converter at this point. So use it. Add the little bit of math that's necessary, to get that activation on there. Ron, you can take that one for your joysticks as well, right? But I think that's something we should be feeding back into the design phases here, which, by the way, is a channel that I don't think we have set up well, right? I think that the actual people who make AT devices are scared to death of working with makers. And therefore don't listen when we say something that actually could help them. All right, so let's talk a little bit about. So I agree on Project Activate that it is the thing that is best developed right now that at some level solves some of this problem. Does that sound right?
Now, I know we're not meant to talk about liability, but when you download that app, it actually makes you check a box saying that I'm not using this for emergency communication. Just saying that out loud.
Okay.
But
so I'm not surprised. Google has lawyers too. At the same time, if it's only an addition and you are so that is a contract. Listen, I actually have a little thing here from this other discussion. All right, there you go. Yeah, put this up again. So we're just going to play this every conversation we have from now on. So, by the way, my streaming skills are getting better. So if an individual ignores that, they are in breach of contract with Google. It doesn't protect Google from any liability if they've made promises otherwise. And it's really a warning to the end user to recognize the position that they're in and that they're taking on a risk themselves. I'm not surprised that box is there. I'm not even going to be surprised if we have a similar one. It also doesn't change the fact that these are people who do not have another option. And they may very well use Project Activate in this situation. And Lissy should hear that. So, Lissy, come back and chat with us next time, because there's no doubt.
It does go back to this point of, because it's on an Android device and not a standalone thing. Now, I don't know how much more reliable a completely standalone thing is, because it's going to have a microcontroller in it. It's going to, it's still going to have a processor in it of some sort.
Yep.
But that was my thought behind why it should maybe be a standalone product, because hopefully it would be more reliable. But
there will be fewer moving parts. There's no doubt about that than an Android. Also, Android probably has things in it that are working against an app being open and active for multiple days. I would not be surprised to there are things on my Apple, on my iPhone that like I still can't believe there's no close all apps button after 12 years, right? There are things that are there because of other drivers, whether they're surveillance or advertising or whatever else there are, right? There are all kinds of other things on a phone that would not be on a dedicated device. We could limit that. We can put it in single user mode. There are ways we can make it more reliable, but it also would be it would have a great deal less testing than an Android device will, right? Android device has been through hundreds of hours of testing before it went out the door. So you're going to have a toss up here. What we can do is design things into a standalone device that make it obvious to a caregiver whether or not the device is actively working, right? You can have LEDs or some other indicator on the device that every 20 seconds it checks to make sure that it's valid and resets a watchdog timer and sets itself to red if it's not on. You can have that even have an external watchdog timer that's on a separate microcontroller or timer that does things like that. We can do things that add visibility into the state of the system for a caregiver that to me would add confidence in the device, right? Again, you can't add false confidence in the device, but I think there are things like that we could do. And I also think that there are things where an Android device is going to have a leg up on us because it has a cell phone connection. It has some form of cell connection, right? You have comments. 1 second. Let me turn that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Was that me you were speaking to?
There you go. Go ahead, Elisa.
I guess I would be more concerned with the Android device on durability when it comes to especially my nursing home folks. I mean, you drop an Android device, you can crack a screen very easily. I've been here long enough that I've loaned iPads to people in nursing homes, and those iPads have walked off, never to be seen again.
Yep.
I even know, Knockham was saying, and I know Androids can be cheap, but they also can be stolen.
Yeah.
Yep. So something that didn't necessarily look like an Android. And then I also think about my folks that are living at home that have 24/7 nursing aides come in. They have no idea how to position. And so having a dedicated device with instructions would be so much more beneficial to the end user.
Right. So let's talk about what a dedicated device would look like. Okay. So we've talked about Project Activate. I do think at the very least, let's talk to Lissy about how does Google want ALS patients to test this, right? I have no doubt from talking to other people at Google who shall not be named, although I said his name earlier, there are multiple voices inside of Google as well, one of which being the legal department. But in general, there are processes for people inside of large companies, Microsoft, Google, et cetera, to work with Google on a test with lots of documentation about what their expectations are, what their promises are, things that will not scare the legal department as much as let's post this for free and let people make it, right? So let's talk to Lissy about getting, whether that's, how are they getting feedback from Nachum and Antoinette and Lisa? And is it getting back in a way that they have a plan? Because let's be clear, the people who made this on their 20% project, which is probably Lissy, who originally made this, they didn't want it to be made for people to sit around and have fun sending text messages to each other with their face. They made it because they wanted to help people with ALS or some other disability. What is the path that they see for how they're going to put this into the hands of the people who need it? And if their answer is they don't have a clue, and we don't have a clue, and Microsoft doesn't have a clue, then we need to have a separate liability conversation with those big companies and their lawyers and my law professors and other people, and have a bigger conversation about that. Because if the answer really is the liability environment is so toxic right now that there is no way to help these people, then there's probably an ADA lawsuit somewhere that needs to be filed, right? Because if we can't help people who we are only improving their lives this way, there is no way to injure them, right? My conversation with Chris.
Well, how do power wheelchairs exist then? Like a power wheelchair could not exist.
Well,
if you're going to have that standard, I mean,
part of that is they're very expensive because they're insured, but that's a minimal answer to that question. A bigger one
I'm going to pipe in there for a second. The other big piece is that there's a lot of controls over that design process, right? There's controls over the design process, controls over the manufacturing. So every aspect of that, from the conception to the testing throughout, it's all very carefully documented, which does increase prices, but it also makes it far more likely for something to go wrong. Sorry.
So in theory, and Jay actually posted an interesting comment. So this is Jay Beavers, right? So he's Microsoft. He says separate companies, separate legal counsel, separate insurance, right? And all that and here, smaller bank accounts. Well, so I got that one, right? So AT Makers has got that one down pat. But those are bad answers, Jay. They're true answers, but they're really bad answers, because what they really mean is we're not focused on how to keep people safe. We're focused on how to protect the companies or charities trying to help this. And you're not wrong. I don't want you to say that you're wrong. It's just bad that you're right with that. Okay. But there has to be God, I started this call off saying I'm not going to get here. Yeah. So thanks, Jay. You're really good with the one-liners. This is good.
Listen, Jay is the guy that deals with this question every day. He's giving people the ability to drive off a cliff.
Yeah.
Even with ALS. I mean,
right. Right. Yeah, no, I got you. And
I don't know, he looks in the mirror.
So there are people who are on the other side of this conversation. Lou Golinker would have a fit with this conversation, right? He's up by you, Malcolm, right? Maybe you know him.
I know him, yes.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people who could be in this. But when I started this conversation, I said, we're going to make a statement about liability, and we're not going to derail on liability, because even if we come up with a solution that we have trouble deploying, we will have moved the ball. Okay?
Well, but I think your point is a good point, because I think we can all think of many things that were good ideas, and they were put out into the world, but not thought about, how are we going to support this? How are we going to keep this going? How are we going to, okay, this is a great first go, but how do we do version 2? How do we do version 3? And how do we make this be the best product it can be? That may or may not be their purview with Project Activate. I don't know. Like you said, we don't know the answer to that.
Right. I do think it is worth having a separate conversation with Lissy and Jay. So Jay's at Microsoft, and the two lawyers who spooked them, because I know there's a lawyer who spooked Jay. So that conversation needs to be had as well, and perhaps with other legal minds as well. I really am not going to be the guy. I might be the guy who can facilitate that conversation. I don't have the answer to it, right? I am probably the geekiest person who's been in this crowd, who's been in a torts classroom listening to these stories. And it's terrifying, having done what I've done and listened to the lawsuits that I then got to listen to. Jay may be the other one who is as geeky as I am and has been through this. but let's solve it. Okay? Fuck it. Let's solve it. And before we deploy it, okay, without another person in the room there for assistance, right? Before we rely on it as an emergency basis, we can have the conversation that says, okay, we've solved this technically. We got 3 solutions technically, right? How are we going to deploy this? And who do we talk to about liability insurance? Who do we talk to about warnings? Who do we talk to about making sure that everybody's informed? What can we get that will stand up that says, I understand that, like I promise you, and I'm going to speak for, I don't usually speak for Chris because I think it's too easy to speak for people in Chris's position, but I will, because we've had this conversation ad nauseum. He knows that if he doesn't find a way to call for help at night, he will die. Okay. He's looking for a solution. If he cannot activate his sling ring, he doesn't have another means. He's looking for it. If he finds it, there has to be a way for him to take the responsibility to say, I'm saying this is an improvement. I'm asking you to build this. I'm asking you to do this for me. And yes, I recognize that it might fail, but without it, I have nothing. There has to be a way to get that out there. And there has to be a way to get the lawyers to recognize that this is not a simple liability case. Okay.
I have a follow-up question then.
Sure.
Why the heck can't we get any AAC company to take interest in this? I mean, I've asked. I've talked to Toby. I've talked to Pranky. Communication is supposed to be their bread and butter. This is communication.
Yeah. So, Elisa, you might get me in a soapbox. I'm going to try not to. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Jake's giving me the no sign. Jay Beavers is joining the group here. Hi, Jay. Give me a second to answer this question before we do this.
I swore I also wasn't going to talk liability, so I figured I'd just listen. But
Yeah. No, I really tried. Elisa, the easy answer that makes people feel the best is that they don't have a solution to this liability concern, and that's why. That's the easy answer. An additional answer is this is not covered under any of the DME codes, and they can't get paid for it. Those are 2 answers. You can take your pick, and I'm happy to have on people from, I mean, my friends at PRC, people from Toby. You all are welcome to join. We can have Jane on, or Dave Hirschfeld, or whoever. We can have other people on to talk about this. But I think those are 2 answers that not many people will argue with. Okay. Anybody argue with that on this call?
No, but I would follow up to say that I know people who would mortgage their home to pay for something like this. So because it's a quality of life issue.
So I had an interesting conversation with a parent of an SMA kiddo who I won't name. So the answer was, Bill, I would never in a million years sue you. Right. And I believe her. I believe her 100%. There is no way she would ever file a lawsuit against me. But it's not necessarily up to her. Right. Accepting that risk isn't necessarily on her head. There are insurance companies who will look at, how did this person die? Is there any way to reclaim the cost of this person's death that we're paying out? In the case of most of the people that I work with, I don't think there is life insurance in play. I don't think there is significant private insurance that would ever file that suit, but that's still a risk, right? And for you and me individually, if I got sued, let me just walk through this. If I got sued, AT Makers got sued for a product, I could shut down AT Makers, and with a little bit of luck, protect my personal assets and walk away. PRC and Toby can't say that, right? They can't do that. It's not a charity that they can shut down and walk. And I don't want to defend PR. Listen, if I'm defending Toby, something is horribly wrong in the world. Okay. So, but to give them some leeway, it's worth thinking about, right? That it's not always the parents. It's not always that they would mortgage their home for this device. It's not that they would never, ever sue you. Sometimes it's in the hands of people whose job it is to recover their losses from an insurance claim. And they're not going to be looking at what's fair. They're going to be looking at the bottom line.
Well, and I mean, to get off of the liability discussion and just talk
Thank
about
you.
product development too, what I've learned, because we are the Smartbox partner for Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and I have the ear of people at Smartbox. What I'm learning is what's a common use case for me is actually a very uncommon use case in the general disability world. So I think there's that factor too. I mean, I've talked to them about having a way to do a switch closure through one of their switch ports. And it took talking to many people and explaining it many, many times for them to even understand what the use case for that would be.
Yeah.
So I think that's the other piece too, is that for you and I, Elisa, like these are the people we see all day, every day. But in the general disability world, this is a very teeny tiny piece of the population that they're designed
I
for.
agree. I was having dinner with a AT coordinator for Pinellas County, or for my local public school system, and the answer is there's a reason that these are called, low incidence, and you're the super low incidence here, right? So their speech devices are, they're direct access 99% of the time. Switch access is less than 1%, and non-standard switches is 1% of that, right? So it's why we're here, right? By the way, somebody just posted what a group of all-stars in the Facebook group. It's kind of true, right? If you look at this group, there's a lot of doers here, which is kind of nice, right? There aren't a lot of people who don't do shit. So thank you all for joining. Jay, you didn't get your introduction. Do you want to, or are you going to assume people know who you are?
No, that's okay. I think we all know each other at this point. That's
right. For better or for worse. I can show. So one thing I can show, which I'll do,
so one of the reasons I did want to jump on is I just wanted to give a little coaching. If you do want to talk to one of the large companies like a Microsoft or a Google or an Apple, I would strongly suggest you do not use confrontation, and nor do you discuss the use cases that they don't want to discuss. So for instance, Project Activate is a wonderful project which was created for someone who has ALS, right? It was originally a prototype that came out of working with Steve Sailing in the early days. And it has all sorts of wonderful uses, some of which, right, lawyers don't want to talk about. And so a project like that can survive as long as it's talking about the things that lawyers don't want to talk about, and it can get hampered when you push it in people's faces about the things they don't want to talk about.
So I agree. I think that has happened with I think that's happened with Project Mimosa as well, right? That's one of the Google projects that Dimitri's working on. There's truth to that, and there's also truth that.
But my point there is that there was probably 15 or 20 people who really helped with that project inside of Google, who all had similar mores, ethics, and objectives to people on this group. But part of working in those big companies is learning what not to say. And so you're not helping when you come in and say the things that aren't.
Okay, but we're the ones getting the text at 1:00 in the morning saying I can't use my device. That's where that's coming from. They're up in their ivory tower making this cool thing, which I'm not taking that away. But after you get 3 or 4 of those texts or a long email saying your device is a piece of crap because I almost died last night, like that's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
But Jay is really saying that you can sometimes get to your goal just by saying the right thing to the right person and not discussing exactly where you want to get to with this project. And you may get there anyway.
So Nachum, you're right, except for one thing. You can get to that answer for you, but you can't spread that answer to others if you're not talking about the actual use case, right? The actual use case is an emergency alert. That's the actual use case.
Right.
And I'm okay with saying, let's sign some NDAs, go to San Francisco or Seattle and have a conversation, right? But let's stop avoiding the conversation, right? I understand with not wanting to have a public conversation, but this is something that is it is heartbreaking to see solutions that we can't deploy. I have not lost any members of AT Makers because of this, but I have lost members of AT Makers for other things, and every time it's heartbreaking, right? We will lose somebody to liability insurance. We will because our hands have been tied enough that I promise that will happen. The way the law works is that there's lawsuits in both directions, right? People can get sued for not putting these things that exist in place as well. I don't know where to go with that, but I am pretty sure that just avoiding the conversation needs to end. I understand that saying that Project Activate is going to be used in these critical solutions, whether they want to or not, is not something that they want us to say, okay? Because it implies that they're aware of it, but they are aware of it, okay? This is just saying the unspoken, right? That's one of the things you don't say out loud is what Jay was saying, right? I think that's a fair assumption, Jay?
Yes.
So,
but to kind of go where Nachum is talking about, for instance, having a conversation with the Activate team about the fact that the app does not necessarily run for a week, and boy, wouldn't it be nice if that app was more stable? And have you thought about testing for a 30-day runtime of the app? Those are conversations that we can have that don't trigger any negative consequences, right? At all. That's just, hey, we love your app and we want it to be a better app, and let's talk about some really cool engineering goals, right? So you can have those without issue.
yes, but that doesn't help get it to the people who need it. Because if not, so here's the problem, Jay.
The world's always going to need you, right?
If we only have that
it's always going to
conversation,
need Antoinette. It's always going to need Nachum. It's always going to need Elisa. And it's great that you're here because you're providing that.
But Jay, if Nachum and Antoinette and Elisa are the ones who are making the recommendation to use a product that is not designed for that, they're the ones breaking their license or overstepping their bounds to get a solution into hand, which means they're not gonna do it.
No license.
No license, me either.
Well,
But those two
No
are screwed.
license.
So,
I'd like to just follow up with that.
Yeah.
Yes, we might lose someone to this product, but let me turn it around. How many people have we lost because we don't have this product?
oh, and I'm sorry, if that is not what you heard me say, I meant that we will lose somebody to product liability, meaning because of product liability, we will not deploy something and we will lose somebody actively and indisputably, right? There's no doubt that this person had the opportunity to get this device. There's no doubt that we chose not to recommend it or not to deploy it because of a risk of liability, and then they died.
Well, and I just also want to follow up with one more thing, that because I have such a long history here, the majority, I'm going to say, of people who would need this type of device, majority, not solely majority, are people who are ventilator dependent, all right? And even if you're on a ventilator, ALS continues to progress.
Mm-hmm.
We hope at that time you have an advance directive. Every state allows an individual or their caregiver to do a terminal wean. I have been involved in dozens of terminal weans, and the only reason people are weaning off and choosing to die is because they can't communicate. No one has ever come off a ventilator because they didn't like their wheelchair or they didn't like their bed. They come off the ventilator because they cannot communicate, so they choose to die. That is a powerful thing. And let me tell you, as an assistive technology practitioner, that weighs heavily on me. Families will say to me, Elisa, have we explored every other option? Because next is death. I'm the only one on my team that has to put that has to deal with that mentally. You know, they don't go to the physical therapist with this. They come to me.
Right.
And so this always weighs heavily on me when I'm hearing somebody going through terminal wean. And you're right. Would I say to that person, try to use Project Activate? No. I'll tell them, you know, here, I'll give them a website, but I'm not recommending it, you know.
Right.
But it takes an emotional toll, at least on me,
Right.
when I have these people making these decisions based on the fact that we don't have something like this. And that's my tangent, and I'm done.
I appreciate it. I spotlighted you because people needed to hear it, right? I will tell you, and again, I'm out of line to bring this up with Chris. So Chris is a friend of mine. So Chris Young, if you guys don't know, I'm talking about Chris Young. He's on AT Makers. I will make him whatever device he wants. Okay. I will make him any device he wants to communicate and to be able to get help. And I will do it as his friend and at his direction. And I don't care. Okay. I really don't. I will do what he needs to do that. And I will do that for other friends who I have who are on ventilators and who need this. I'm sure all of us would do that for our friends. We need to be more people's friends, right? Chris asked me specifically about this, about, you know, he's bothered tremendously by the fact that we are limited by this particular fear, and that we may have people who can't get the help that they need because of this. I don't blame him. So I know we're way off track of what we wanted to talk about today. So I hope everybody's happy with this, right? But I think it is something that we need to have. This group is a very good group to be having this conversation first. What I would like to do is let's get 3 solutions to this, okay? And then let's have this conversation with the other people who need to have it privately, right? And whether that's the director of, I don't know, Antoinette, where are you working?
I own Improvability. I own my own company.
Okay, so one of your clients, or Elisa, are you in a hospital facility, or, you know, the Shepherd Center or some rehab facility who sees this all the time, right? Because they see what we're seeing, and they have lawyers, and they're dealing with end of life stuff. Most of us are doing this from a place of personal history, I think. For those of us who aren't, it's not our daily job. I think Jay and I and others here are doing this because something in our lives have made us give a shit about this, right? I'm not going to go into my story because it's just too damn depressing. But we are the right people to solve this. Let's just solve it, okay? And let's come back and have this conversation again about how to deploy it. And if the answer really is we've solved it, I got to cut down on the cursing because I have a feeling people are going to actually watch this video. If we've solved this technically, and Antoinette's thrilled with the way that it works, and Elisa says, I have 2 solutions, both of which are 75% of what I want, and I'm happier than I was when I started, right? And we actually have people stopping us from deploying it, then let's get an ADA lawsuit about it. Let's get an ADA. Let's use a different law, right? About deploying people with, you know, not supporting people with disabilities in their everyday life. Let's do that. Okay. And I'll back that.
So I'm going to go on the record and say nobody's stopping anybody from doing anything. And I'm going to go further on the record and say some of these technologies like Activate come from the goodness of people's hearts who are just as focused and dedicated as anyone on this call, and have the
I was
best of
not. I was
intentions.
not implying that the big companies were stopping us from doing things. If that's what you meant, Jay. I mean, if our fear of liability is stopping us from doing this, then let's reduce it. Let's do something actively to reduce that fear. Okay, and perhaps some people in this group or in the broader group can't participate in that part of that argument. It doesn't matter. This is the group to solve the problem. Let's solve the problem, and then we'll solve the second problem, which is the legal one. Okay. So let's all right. Let's get
Bill,
back
one
on what we
thing-
thought we were
one-
going to talk about in the beginning.
One quick thing. I
Oh,
just
shit.
loved something you said.
Okay.
I just want to mention that you said, let's come up with 3 solutions. I think that that's really the best way to address this, because I think that I don't want to keep talking about Project Activate like it's the solution here.
Mhm.
And I think it's a partial solution, and it is a solution for a number of people. But if we look at this as something that probably needs 3 solutions,
Mhm.
I think that's going to be a way better way for us to address it.
Yeah,
Project
I
Activate-
agree. And I'm so glad you're talking about something technical. I thought you were going to give me one more reason to talk. so yay, Nachum. I love it. Okay. And maybe the answer is we can go to and to give Jay, I think I lost Jay. I didn't mean to lose Jay. I hope I didn't.
No, he
kill
said
him.
in the chat.
No, he had to go.
Okay. I hope he didn't get mad. So, but to give Jay credit, the answer might be we can ask, as he suggested, we can ask Project Activate, hey, you think you could send out a Bluetooth notification when you do this? And then all of a sudden, we can make a little thing that goes next to it that's hardware and is watching the heartbeat or things like that, right? There may be ways we can leverage Project Activate to make it more of a standalone device, or to make it closer to that. Let's talk about what a standalone device would look like, okay? Which is what I thought I was going to talk about on this meeting. So, sorry. So let's take a look at this. So that's not what I wanted it to look like. That's Nachum, and it's the wrong view. Everything is wrong. All right, this is fine. So actually, I like that one better. Okay. So I took a look at how I would solve this problem from a standalone. Okay, and I would use this device right here. Okay. So this device is a hat for a Raspberry Pi 4. It's a hat for Raspberry Pi, but it's best used on a Raspberry Pi 4. And what they're doing with it is they're using TensorFlow Lite, or it begins with an L. It's the Microsoft version of machine learning, Luca. Doesn't matter. It will be on here. Lobe. There it is. Lobe. So I have one of these devices right here. Let me switch to this view. Nope. 1 second. Hey, there we go. Nope. There we go. All right. You all can interrupt. So this is the Braincraft hat. Okay. And what it does basically is it takes your basic Raspberry Pi, which is underneath down there. Okay. There's a Raspberry Pi 4. It adds a fan for cooling, so you get your full processor speed out of the Pi. It passes through the camera module. So this has got a non-infrared camera in it right now. It gives you a screen so you can show the actual view that the camera is seeing. It gives you a left, right, up, down button for user input, some LEDs for user output. It gives you two speakers, one here and one over here for listening to input, which you can turn on and off. It gives you a Stemma QT or I think there's a Stemma QT on it somewhere. If not, there's a there's some form of an I2C port on it. Hey, here it is. There's your Stemma QT, so you can do any other input like infrared sensors and things like that if you wanted to add it into this. And then you've got speaker output. If you want to make it loud, you can put it into an amp or just plug speakers right in. It's got a built-in, it'll drive some speakers by itself, or you can add an amp. So this is a $44 hat with the screen and all the stuff I just said, on top of a $60 to $80 Raspberry Pi, and I don't know, maybe a $20 camera. I'm not sure what they're running for right now, but let's say that the hardware of this solution, even with a decent power supply, let's say you could keep it under $120 for the hardware, quantity 1, to make this. Okay. I'm pretty sure that given the OpenCV software, we can easily have it detect open and closed eyes. Let me go back to this view for a second. Here. All right. So does anybody have any reason to believe that we can't, we couldn't get eye detection, reliable eye detection using OpenCV out of that device? Ron?
So I guess I think the question is about light.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use an infrared camera, is that going to interfere with the infrared camera of the eye gaze?
So, all right. So, so this is the. Let me switch back. So let me just kind of throw out my what my 2 cents on that. So there is a no infrared. This noir or NOIR camera is one that doesn't have an infrared filter on it. What it means really is that the camera is exactly the same sensor as this, but because there's no infrared filter, it is exceptionally sensitive to infrared light. It basically makes it an infrared camera. It's the same cost as the regular camera. But
this is my ignorance of infrared. Like if you have infrared shooting at your face through the eye gaze system, is that gonna
right? So
get washed out?
This is passive. It does not spray infrared out, right? It is simply watching the infrared. If you have infrared light coming from the camera, your infrared camera from your eye gaze system, that will illuminate your face, and this will use that light to see your eyes. If that, and it will not impact that passive camera will not impact the use of your eye gaze. It can't. It's just being passive. The second question we've had is, well, if the eye gaze system is off because it's died, which is what we're trying to detect, right? Then how is it going to be able to see your eyes? And it's a valid question, except you just have to step back and say, well, then if the eye gaze system is off and there's no infrared light, we trigger on that, right? That's one of the things that we're watching for.
But I've had users that the camera is still working, but they've lost access through the software not performing properly.
But if the camera is still working, then we have the light to watch their eyes.
Okay.
Right? So if the camera is working, we have enough light to watch their eyes. If the camera isn't working, it should be, and we should be sounding an alert because we don't have enough light to see their eyes. Fair.
Except if someone wants to go to sleep and the camera goes to sleep. So
if the camera goes to sleep and the person goes to sleep, then at some point, somebody needs to change the mode of the room to be, I'm going to sleep, right? And if the answer becomes, okay, the camera is off because I'm going to sleep, which means we need to add the infrared light, then we add an infrared light. And somebody needs to say night mode. Somebody needs to add the intelligence here to say, Nachum, you're muted, I think.
Oh,
but
sorry. No.
It's okay. Oh, no, you're not. I just couldn't hear you for a second.
I just wanted to clarify for Antoinette that if they put the camera to sleep, it's still shooting infrared to see when they wake up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if theirs stops, and we want, so let's pretend for a minute there's no infrared camera on the device, because in Chris's case, that's the case. Chris doesn't use infrared. He doesn't use eye gaze. He uses switch control to speak at night. And the problem is, if his switch on his thumb becomes, if he can't activate it, whether it's his thumb's not working or the switch isn't working, he needs another way to get attention, right? In his case, we would need to provide our own infrared. It's literally an infrared LED. This is a 20-cent part. This is not a significant cost or anything, right? We would need to add that. So in that setting, we would be adding our own light. In the setting where there already is infrared light from a camera, we would be turning our own light off so that we don't interfere with the camera light. Okay? We can tell the difference by doing something simple, like putting a white dot next to the user. If their infrared is on, it will reflect the infrared and we'll see it. And we won't turn our own infrared on. And when it's off, we'll turn it on. We can solve this with logic and modes. It might require a caregiver to change the mode that says, oh, I'm turning off your eye gaze. I don't want it to freak out that your eye gaze isn't there. Turn on your own infrared light because it's nighttime. And as long as you make that a simple switch, you hit the button and it says nighttime, or you hit the button and it toggles through the 3 modes that you have, I think that's something that we can solve. I also think it's an edge case, okay? And that if we can solve everything except for the case where we can't use our own infrared and we have to use the infrared and it's not working at night, I'm not willing, and Jay said this and I just want to back him up on it, we're not going to make the perfect the enemy of the good, right?
Right.
We should document that there might be this gap here that we haven't quite figured out how to make this easy enough for a caregiver yet, right? But I do think,
and I mean, I don't know how sensitive these cameras are, how much light they pick up, but I mean, it could be having a night light on could be enough. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't either. I think that this standalone project has a long way to go technically to be where we want it to be. What I want to do is, by the way, John Jordan says, I agree, open CV is good detecting eye closure, which is great. So
this is eye open close, not where we're looking.
Correct. Now,
okay.
There are OpenCV can also do gesture recognition. And what's interesting is that the gesture recognition from Project Activate was pulled out into a separate OpenCV library that they've released open source, right? Do you guys see that video that was posted recently that had the guy sending Morse code by moving his face around? So that's the gesture recognition from Project Activate, I believe, being re-released as open source, just as gesture recognition, not as an AT solution. But we can use that, right? So step one to me would be, let's start with eye close and open, because we know it's something that is solved, right? It's been solved for 10 years, okay? By the way, I love this mug. My wife got me this mug. It says, I'm not bossy, I just have better ideas. I love it. So, and it's just got water, I promise. But it is, I think it's something worth putting together. And I think, Ron, do you have all the parts to put this together?
No, I don't have the hat. I have the pie, not the hat.
Well, they're available for $45. Can I ask you to keep track of your expenditures and I can reimburse you from AT Makers and get one?
Sure.
And do you have a camera?
I have many cameras, but I'd rather have one that we could source.
Yeah, so the Raspberry Pi cameras are available, unlike the Raspberry Pis. So the reason I asked Ron is that the Raspberry Pi itself is out of stock. It is unobtainium. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but it means at the moment it is completely impossible to find one for sale. We probably could find some, okay? If we needed 10, I can make sure we can get 10. I have friends in low places that can probably make sure that, given what we're trying to do, 10 of these show up so that we can get them into testing. But I asked Ron because I'm pretty sure he already has one. Yes?
I'm not saying.
So, but you don't need me to send you mine. Right? So ideally, what I would like to be able to say is that this is not the device we would want to use. I would like to test this with a device that looks more like this, right? So this is the much cheaper Pi Zero W, $15 Wi-Fi board that should run OpenCV well enough to do eye blink analysis as it is. So if this and a camera did it by itself, it would drop our costs by about 60%, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not
just gonna
sure.
throw it out there. I don't know what the cost that we're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to worry about saving $3.
So it's more about, you're right.
But availability is important, obviously.
It's about availability, right? The Pi 4s are unobtainium. The Zero Ws are kind of, so many people have them that honestly, if I went to Nation of Makers and said, I need a bunch of Raspberry Pi 3s donated, I'd get a bunch of Raspberry Pi 3s, or I'd get a bunch of Pi Zero Ws. Saying I need a bunch of Raspberry Pi 4s donated right now, I'm going to get, chuckles. But I would rather, John Jordan said, Adafruit just announced 3 new Raspberry Pi cameras. They did. They're the little spy cameras. They're very, very small, and they're fisheye. They might be a better. I don't know. They're a different camera, so we have all the other ones to try. These Pis will also take. They'll take USB cameras, right? You can use a Logitech camera or any other camera. You don't have to use one of their little ones. It's just that they're faster and they're kind of made for this. Another thing I wanted to show you guys while I'm here.
Once you're on this, just one quick addition. That, now that you're, you may actually be solving another whole issue, doing it the way you mentioned, because we have this issue where, forget about gestures, just if someone's eye tracker freezes or just the batteries go out or something in the middle of the night, just being able to detect that the infrared is not there and wake up everybody in the room, that in itself is a big solution that we weren't looking for, but not a bad fringe benefit.
Oh no, that's a real. It's a watchdog, really. I mean, a lot of this is watchdog.
And just to be clear, that one we can solve with much cheaper, much more obtainable solutions. We have a. I can't believe there's not one on my desk, but
I'm already done. Here it is.
So Chris Young's board, the infrared hat that he has, by itself with no Pi, has an infrared receiver that can detect whether there's infrared in the room, right? And then you could literally drop an ESP32 S2 QT Pi on it. Honestly, you'd have a $15 solution that would text you when it was down.
That's like, that's
Let's add that to the list of.
Wait, hold on! Quit throwing out these dollar amounts.
All right, how about within a reasonable?
I need to make some money here.
So Ron will be selling them for $85, and everybody will be thrilled with that price.
Yes,
free shipping.
Yeah. So
that is a pet peeve of mine when people say, "Oh, well, you can make that with $3 of parts." Yeah, $3 of parts, and I mean, how much brain power is in this room right now? Yeah. How many degrees are represented here? How much hours of learning how? I mean, I personally, if you gave me those parts, I wouldn't know what to do with them. There is a cost to knowing how to put it together.
Correct, but there's also
or a value, I should say.
There are also some rules of thumb, though. Like outside of AT, the rule of thumb generally is about triple your bill of material to get to retail, right? Like if you're making,
but we're not selling a million of them. We're selling 3.
Yeah, but you don't have to sell a million of them for your bill of material. So the answer can be, and we're a maker community that's open source. So when we're
Exactly.
publishing the designs, it does matter that the items can be easily obtained, right? It can't be, it requires a $16,000 neuro node in order to be able to solve the problem, right? Not to throw anybody under the bus there. John Jordan says, I love the one-liners from these guys. They won't come on. They're just lobbing grenades here and there. But I think it is important that we state not what we expect the end price to be, but how available. And now there's two answers: how available financially, and how available given the chip shortage. Right? Where are we on the ability to make these? And I think that if these things aren't makeable by end users, if they are makeable by end users, at least there's the possibility for somebody to be able to get these without somebody, being willing to sell them, right? And Ron, I know you want to make money. Do you really want to sell this item yet until we finish the other conversations?
I'll just stick with my joystick.
You see, right? Right. And you make sure that joystick can't control a power chair, right? Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's an example of frustration for me. How many people ask for that, the power chair stuff? I'm like, no way.
Right. No, I have a board that
Back
actually
to liability. Sorry.
Yeah. I actually have a board that converts anything into analog power chair joystick. Jake says, so Jake left, but he's back. He says, another vote for the old Android and a secure box solution.
Don't make it look like an Android and nobody will steal it.
So, well, not having it act as a phone is a big part of that. I mean, we used to have the idea. You remember the old iPod? What were they called? Yeah, the things that were just like iPhones but didn't have
iPod
cellular.
Touch.
Yeah, iPod Touch, right? The iPod Touch was a very interesting device in that it had all the functionality of the iOS operating system without being a phone. That actually would be nice to have. I don't think anybody makes one anymore. Can you buy an Android that doesn't have?
Oh, buy an Android.
I guess you can buy an iPad without cellular service.
Yeah.
I guess you can buy Androids without cellular service.
Yeah, I mean, the one I have doesn't have an active SIM card in it.
Yeah, but people will still steal it because they can stick a SIM card in it.
But if you put it in a box and make it where only the camera is exposed or something, and they have no idea that there's a phone back there,
yeah,
cover it with garbage.
Yeah. You can write.
So speaking real quickly about what this thing would look like, it could not be it could not be an open bunch of wires like I just showed you, right? There are things like maybe this one, like this, that actually takes the pieces and makes 3D printed enclosures around them. The Ruiz brothers made this one that holds the speaker and the camera, different camera lenses, and gives you like the ability to have the screen on the back inside of an enclosed housing. They have a different front that isn't open like this that actually encloses the whole thing. There are lots of other Raspberry Pi cases out there that we can 3D print to stick it into. So when you see something open like this where I'm showing all the wires, don't think for a minute that I think we can deploy something with a bunch of wires sticking out, okay? Even if we solved it exactly like this, we would have to have an enclosure that made that stuff available. It's a reason why, I don't know if you guys know what the CM4 modules are. I'm sure Ron does. The CM4 modules are, let's see if I can find one. So this is why there are no Raspberry Pis right now, by the way. This is a module that Raspberry Pi sells for this is profiteering happening on AliExpress. So I just want the actual Compute 4 module. So this module has all the computing power of a Raspberry Pi 4, but none of the peripherals. So you don't see any HDMI, you don't see USB, you don't see anything else, any way to connect to it except for Wi-Fi. But it's got the processing power in it. And then on the back, what it has is it has these two strips that are meant to pop onto a board that you design, and you take exactly the input you want. Like, I need a camera on it. Okay, then you put your camera on your board. Or you put, I need an HDMI output on it. Then you put the HDMI port on your board. But you can take their board and it has all the brains. So you're not reinventing that and making your own Linux distribution and starting from scratch. When these came out, they allowed corporate world to make devices that had been prototyped as Raspberry Pis. Okay, so they had prototyped them as Raspberry Pis, but they wanted to be able to deploy something that was more reliable and didn't look like a bunch of things stuck on a Raspberry Pi. So these are hard to buy, but because right now there's a shortage of them, but they exist and they're $30. It says available for back order, but Raspberry Pi chose to prioritize these chips over the actual the commodity Raspberry Pis because there were companies that were reliant on this and their employees were going to be let go. So right now they're focusing on making these chips instead of the ones that we can buy at Adafruit and things like that. Very controversial decision. I don't know whether it was the right one or not. I'm just reporting it to you, okay? But it does mean that down the road, if we found a solution based on a Raspberry Pi that we prototyped in a thing that looked like this, and somebody wanted to make it into a commercially viable solution, the CM4 is how that's supposed to be done, right? You make your own PCB board that's got those two, the mating parts of those two connectors. You pop the $30 CM4 module on it. You've got another $20 worth of parts with your camera, and it's going to fit into your case perfectly, and it's going to look like a professional product. So that's another path to getting Antoinette to. It is a dedicated device, but we get to prototype using these components. Was everybody aware of those? I'm pretty sure Ron was. Was anybody else aware of the CM4s? No. So Malcolm and Antoinette?
I'm not into Raspberry Pis. I'm just because I missed it. I was started out with Timex Sinclair. Raspberry Pis came out at the wrong time in my life.
Gotcha.
One question for you, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
The hat for that Raspberry Pi, the speaker output, is that amplified?
So let me bring it up here. I think it is. I think it takes an 8-ohm speaker, so that means it must be. But let's actually bring it up and look.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah, it says stereo microphone input, stereo headphone out, or powered speakers. So maybe not.
Okay. So that would add a little bit too.
Yeah, it was sort of. I mean, yes, it would, but then again, I mean, you can go in here and just stereo amplifier.
Yeah, that's a buck or two.
It's yeah, I think it's this Class D one is $9.
Okay.
So yes, you're right. It would add something if not, or you'd use powered speakers, right?
Right.
But they have. I don't think in this project, this speaker I believe is directly connected. So maybe that is a powered speaker they're using. Let's see. It's a good question. It's worth asking. Where's the parts here? So
it would be nice to have the speaker in the enclosure itself.
Yes.
Well,
and certainly you could do something like a piezo, right, where it's just an alert, it doesn't have to speaking, and then you don't have to have the amplifier, right? But they had a project recently that was showing it, saying it would say, coffee cup out loud when it did it. It would say, lion, tiger, coffee cup, whatever it detected, and it was using a speaker that was on the device. So I'll look on it and see, just to kind of see what the answer is. I'm certain that it's got speaker outputs, whether they're only for powered speaker or not, I will find out. It's a good takeaway to look up. But they had in the Learn guide. We just did a project recently that had it talking, and that could be sleight of hand where they had something off to the side that had an amplified speaker, but I can ask. If you guys don't know, the Discord server for Adafruit is a really fantastic place to get answers in like 2 minutes. They are very interested in helping us with this kind of stuff. And so I would ask Dan Halbert and he'd get me an answer right away. Right. So here, watch. Hey, Dan, is the speaker put on the Braincraft amplified? Because
some of these ventilators are really loud.
Yeah.
Like, that is a concern.
Yep. And, the only nice thing about it being a Pi is if the answer was, it's not loud enough, nobody's turned me off in 2 minutes, send the text message, send the if this then that alert, flash the lights, right? That all of that output can be whatever that particular user setting needs. Right. Because all of that can just be, I'm going to send an alert to if this then that, and they're going to, from there, they're going to connect, open the garage door, right? Whatever. So I'm a big fan of open the garage door. It's a really empowering thing. Elisa's back. Hello, Elisa.
I'm sorry, guys. We had a horrible storm last night, and my Wi-Fi has not recovered.
Oh, that's okay. So, all right. So,
according to my count, I think we've hit our 3 solutions.
Yeah. So let's recap them. We've got the Android in a secure box using Project Activate, which we're pretty sure would help a lot of people. Recommending it is something we have to figure out how to do, but that's a separate conversation. But Nachum and Elisa and Antoinette, can you get these in front of ALS folks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one user here in Austin that he has an Android phone, so it's just a matter of getting. I just need to mount it so that it's facing him, and I showed it to him really quickly, and he's kind of techie, so he would be cool with that.
Okay, so one thing we can't help with is mounting.
I have RAM parts galore, so I'm not worried about that.
Okay, yes, I have lots of things that hold phones and have quarter 20s on the back, which if anybody, the designs are. I'm a big quarter 20 fan. You guys should know that by now, right? I put everything on a camera mount.
Right, but before I put something in front of somebody, do I not want to know that it's not going to shut off after 4 days?
So what I'd like to be doing in this phase is to be having it on for an hour while you're there, right? I don't want them to be relying on this emergency alert. I want to be knowing how reliably can we get input from the user into that system and reliably getting activations out from different viewpoints day by day. Do you have to do you have to reposition it when you come back the next day and test it? Do you have to go through a whole configuration setup when the lighting's different? When those are very valuable things that we need to be able to answer on this product that is out there, right? And I think you 3 are in a very good setting. If you guys find a good working cheap Android, I will get one for Chris and ship it to him. So we'll have one more. I love using Chris as a guinea pig. Jason Edelman says that the Braincraft is a 1 watt speaker output, which is going to be loud enough for a lot of things.
Right.
It's not a boom box, but it will get you'll hear the alert, right?
Right.
And I don't know if Dan answered that. Oh, here you go. So Dan says, so this is what I mean, by the way. This is what I meant about the Discord server, right? I think so. Stereo headphone out, 1 watt speaker output. That's the brains. It was Class D, and like, here's everything you ever wanted to know. Thanks, Dan. So yeah, so there's your answer, Knock'em. Okay.
Okay.
And you should all join their Discord server and especially like the Circuit Python group on it. So, all right, back to this. So I'd like to get some answers on that. I like using Chris as a guinea pig because he's such a maker on his own. He writes all his own software. He and I just presented together at the Indiana AT group, the Patents Tech Expo. It's great to have somebody who's one of us from this group need it, right? And he's so much more motivated to do it and not drop it. So I would like to get him one. I don't want to randomly pick an Android, but if somebody has a good one they can recommend to me.
S7 is what I tell everybody to get, but
Is
I'm
it-
just mentioning it because they were always available on eBay.
And what is it called?
The Galaxy S7, I think. That's just one. It's just like an old Android that just seems to work well. It overheats a little bit, but it's pretty good.
And does it run the latest version of Android?
I think so. It kept updating, but I don't know if mine even ever got up to the latest update yet. But it's been
Yeah, those are like
worked
$100.
Project Activate perfectly.
Those are like $100. That's great. And there's some for like 60 and 70.
Yeah.
Okay. I also might
I'm sorry. One more thing, just because once you're still on that topic, someone who's not using an eye tracker is going to be a much easier test case. But people who are using an eye tracker, they're depending if they're using like a 15 or a 16-inch eye tracker, then you do get into positioning issues because they have to be able to. You have to have that phone in a place where when they're tracking to any side of that screen, it's not going to go and activate the Android. So the positioning becomes a bigger thing. So for Antoinette's case, it's a little more difficult. For Alyssa's case, it's easier. If you're just making that their night alarm, it's much, much easier. So by your Chris, it's going to be easier to test, but it may not be a great test for what we're looking for.
Can we find out if Project Activate can work on long blinks?
Well, it doesn't, but I think maybe that was one of the things in one of her emails. I don't think it has that gesture now.
I don't think it does open or close. I think it's just look left, look right, up or down.
Okay, because long closes would not activate your eye gaze, right?
Right.
So let's find that out and feed that back to her as something that would be helpful to us. Okay. I'm sure she's going to watch this because it's such a great video. So here's the thing: like 6 people are going to be super excited about this video. Hopefully, it's the right 6 people. Right? So, all right.
You know what it's going to be, Bill? It's going to be some lawyer in Microsoft.
Quick, put up the disclaimer.
Or Google, put up the disclaimer. Look at that. There you go. There you go. We can talk over a beer sometime about my trip to law school last year and what I took out of it. Actually, I have a video on it. You all should watch it. Antoinette thought it was enlightening, right?
Oh, I thought it was such a good discussion because those are my two biggest kind of conflicts with AT and makers is liability, and then also the parts are only $3. Why are you charging me $100 for it? So that's kind of something that's always been rolling around the back of my head about how do you properly address it in a thoughtful way. So I really liked how you stepped through that whole process of
risk assessment.
I mean, we all walk outside and we could get hit by a car. I mean, we're all taking risks every day. So, but when you offer a product, there's new things that come up with that.
Yeah. And there's no doubt about that. And the minute you sell it, your liability risk changes dramatically, right? But I didn't say that, Ron. You keep selling. If you haven't watched that video, you should watch that video. Okay. So, so first we're gonna take the existing solution that we have available We're going to answer those questions. And Antoinette, you are going to coordinate that with your friends, Malcolm and Elisa. Yes?
Yes.
You're going to get those answers while I go to New York. So sometime in the next 2 weeks, we're going to circle back and you're going to have good answers, right?
We'll get as much data as we can. What I really, if anyone in the Austin area wants to be an engineering intern, I'll take them. And I actually have, I've had some engineering interns in the past. We're at the end of a semester, so
I don't know if
if
you
I'm
can
gonna
do
get
engineering intern, but Ron's real close if you need somebody technical.
Well, no, I'm just thinking like physically. I mean, just getting to a client, spending an hour with them. Like, I mean, my schedule is, you don't want to see my calendar. It's very scary.
Well, when we get to January of next year, my daughter is doing her internship in Austin area for speech pathology. So if you need a set of hands, she'll be doing it for the school district, it looks like, with Cindy Lou. I forget Cindy Lou's last name. Speech pathologist down there. So when that's the case, she might be available.
Told her some things?
Yeah, I don't actually have to. She loves this stuff. I think I've voluntold her enough that she actually loves it now. So.
Well, either way, she definitely, feel free to look me up, and I'd love to meet her.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's one. Second, Chris is currently testing his 2 sensor eye blink detector. He texted me the other day and he said, "I'm typing this by blinking into my ultimate remote." Right, so he's got this ultimate remote. It looks like this. If you've never seen it, it's a great video. But he's able to use the 2 to type, and he was sending me text messages with his eyes, so I know he's got it working.
That's great.
Yeah, it's cool. And so he's going to solidify that and get the 3D print clips that go on his glasses ready and published. As that happens, it will make it back onto AT Makers. I can make sure that as that happens, even if it's early access, that this group sees where that is and can get easy access to it. Elisa, once he's got that done, I can make you a set. I have all the parts. So I have all the parts to make you a switch that does that. What the switch activates, I don't have. I'd have to talk to you guys about that. Like right now, I could give you one that you plugged into a computer and it sends keystrokes, right? Or sends switch interface to iOS. But I don't have the alert system thing for you to plug it into to test. But from a test perspective, I can send you some. Then maybe that's the answer. I'll send you some that send keystrokes, and that would give us enough to find out how effective they are on different people, right? We can do something motivating, like have them set up with a game input for Xbox or something. I don't know. Tell me how you'd like them, what you'd like them to do when the left and right switches are activated, and I can send you them. I don't know what you'd want yet. So what would you want? What would you 3 want for early testing?
I mean, if it's just a switch closure.
Okay. So I have SSR boards that take input from the kind of device that'll be on there, a Cutie Pie or whatever, and just open and close switches. And it has 2 switches on it. Would that be enough? You'd run wires from that into something else.
Yeah, I mean, we have like switch adapted doorbells, stuff like that. Okay.
And so I'll make up something that gives you, when his design for the eye gaze is done, his goes HID into a device. I'll make one that instead just opens and closes contacts for you, and I'll get that out to you. That it'll take a couple weeks for all that to happen, but we'll get it out there. I don't know my next trip to Austin. I was just there. I wish we'd,
I know I was out of town when you were here.
Yeah.
I didn't know AOTA was happening in San Antonio. I didn't know till like literally a week before.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So I had really good OTs. I had Judy Schoonover and Alyssa Wern working the lesson picks booth at AOTA. It was great. So so that's the second one. On the third, Ron, you're going to get the hardware for this. I'm reaching out to the Ruiz brothers, who are local to me. So the one thing I learned is that the most recent Raspbian image does not work with OpenCV. So you have to go back a version.
Okay.
And then you've got to get the drivers for this board, for this display.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to try and get from them, I'm going to try and get an image, a Raspberry Pi image that runs this hat and has OpenCV installed.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that'll be going back about 6 months in versions, it would save me a ton to be able to do that rather than trying to build it.
Sure.
And if I can just get them to give me a SD card with it, I think I'd be in better shape than me starting from scratch. So I'm going to try and do that first. When I get that, or if I do it from scratch, when I get that, I can send you an image to image on your flash card. Okay. I don't want us to be reproduced. And listen, if you get a wild hair, which seems to happen with you once in a while, and get it set up and working, make me an image of your SD card so that I don't have to waste my time doing it.
Okay? I need a credit card number, please.
So I'll be happy to reimburse you, or send me an address and I'll have things shipped to you. Okay. So I don't have any problem funding prototypes for this. This is what AT Makers is about. It's why we raise money. It's why we got the money from Project Vive. These are low numbers, and I'm happy to do it. That doesn't mean I want to fund all your folks' solutions, but prototypes are a different story. Okay. And y'all are welcome to make donations when you die to okay.
So I guess what I will do is I'll put together like some sort of document that everyone who tries something can use to report back.
Yep. I think that's great. And then you'll share that with the other clinicians. Antoinette, will you document what we did, what we said today? So
that wasn't on my to-do list when we started.
I know, but there's recording. I usually bring Eric Carson for that kind of thing, and he's great at it, but he has got more important things to do today.
Okay, what does that mean? Document what we did today. What do you mean by that?
So just the takeaways, what we're doing, who's doing what as our action items here.
Okay,
and
I can do that.
Post them up to GitHub. So yeah. I'm gonna make this Raspberry Pi thing work and get an image to Ron, or vice versa. But we're gonna separately be working on that and getting it working. Chris is working on the eye blink sensors. I will make sure that his progress feeds back into this group. And you three are going to get Project Activate on as many humans as possible with good feedback. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Now, were we still going to do take a look at option 4, which is the IR watchdog?
Yes.
So sure, yeah. That is something that we can do. I mean, I have the. Honestly, I could send you, depending on my night. I'm flying out in the morning, but if I have time tonight, I can assemble one of Chris's infrared boards and stick a. I have this is a ESP32S2 QT Pi. Mm-hmm. I could pop one of these on his infrared board and send you one if you wanted to take on hacking on it. It's just an infrared receiver.
Right. No, I'm aware of that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
Well, you could just send me the board. Trust me, I can solder it.
Okay. I can just send you the PCB board and the. You want a QT Pi, or you have plenty?
I have SAM 21s.
Those are useless.
So they're good for joysticks.
So SAM 21s are fine. until you're trying to spread this to makers, especially teens who want to help, who have all been taught Python.
Right.
And that SAMD21 is useless in Python.
Yeah, that's my proprietary secret.
Oh, I see. You're going to use it Arduino. So,
exactly. Everything's in C, my friend. None of that.
hey, listen, it's much more reliable that way. But when you want them to be able to follow along, it's a lot harder in C. Yeah. So anyway, yes, I will send you a board. And so why don't you send me a direct message with your address?
Yep.
I will send you a board. And I'll probably give Chris, we should get Chris involved in this part as well, because I honestly think he's got the hardware and could probably crank this out in a day. He knows he knows infrared so well that it'd be hard to do that. Look at all these texts I missed in the private chat. Elisa, what is this stuff you shared with us?
So I have been mentoring bioengineering students from Drexel for years. And my group, the last time I did it was 2021, pre-COVID. And they came up with a eye-activated EMG solution using a Raspberry. And so I just sent you the PDF. I just wanted you to have it.
Okay.
Just to see what they have done.
Okay.
But they were the first group that actually came up with a viable product. Others have tried and failed. But these guys did it.
Okay.
So I just was sharing that with you.
Gotcha. So so unfortunately the private chat goes away. So would you mind posting that to one of the even the comment section here or on the group or whatever?
Sure.
Posting those links for everybody else, because when we close this, the private chat just goes poof. I think it's a big flaw in this product. Too many times I've missed something. So, but we are 2 hours and 15 minutes into this. We suck. So
it's all your fault.
Yeah. So
I
don't want to talk about liability. I think so from now on, we're going to have monetary penalties for everybody who brings up liability. You'll have to make a charitable donation of $20 to 18 Acres every time you derail the conversation. Okay. You ever see the Big Bang where they're ripping the duct tape off of each other's arms when they distract each other? We'll do that. So, all right. I think we're good. We've certainly gotten rid of all of our viewers. They're all gone. So, if you are still watching, God bless you. It's wonderful. But we are going to say goodbye. That's Nachum. There you go. Are you getting better on the name?
Yeah.
All right. So
Great. Jay needs some lessons.
Yeah. All right. So Jay, so those of you who left, Jake and Jay and everybody else who was here, Lissy, thank you for joining us. Those who've watched on the group, I hope this has been helpful or at least entertaining to see how we think. For those worried about the liability stuff, we're going to have more conversations. I would like to get back together next Thursday night. How's next Thursday night? A week from Thursday, not this coming Thursday.
So the 12th?
Sounds right.
Are you expecting to have data at that point?
I'm expecting to have some progress on these three things.
We can have a meeting.
I don't want meetings for meeting's sake. If that's not enough time for you guys to get it into the field, give it another week.
I think give it another week.
2 weeks would be better.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
Another week.
Because I'm scheduling appointments end of May already.
Okay. Are we happy with the way this platform worked out?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I like the fact that the peanut gallery can participate. I think it's great. So all right, let's do it a week. So that's week.
The 19th is the
so
Thursday.
The 19th. Let me look at our calendar here. I think it's fine. The only day I will have one travel day that week, which should be the 17th. If that changes, I'll have to update you guys. Monday, I definitely will be available on the 16th. And Friday, I definitely will be available. The 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, I'm not sure which day I will be driving, but one of them I will be driving all day.
Okay. Yeah, usually Mondays and Fridays are my free days
Okay.
that end up being filled up with stuff like this.
Well, given that I wanted to meet next week, why don't we do it on the 16th, which pushes you guys to an earlier date?
Okay.
Okay. And Jay and I will definitely have something by then, right? Jay, Ron and I will definitely have something later on.
Oh,
Jay.
sure.
So Ron and I will definitely have something by the 16th because he's working on it now.
I'm done.
He's done. All right. Okay, so let's work on the 16th unless we have conflicts. And Antoinette, I like that little tool you used for scheduling. So why don't you do that? Okay.
Okay. You don't want to just pick a time since we're all here?
I'm not sure we are all here, but we can pick
Well,
a time.
Can we pick a time? I mean, is there anyone else who we have to coordinate with?
Well, no, Lissy couldn't make it this time. I'd hate to pick a time where she couldn't do it.
Can we just say 4 p.m. and if someone wants
Sure.
to see if she can make
4
it?
p.m. until somebody says no. I'm fine.
Right. Put a hold on it. Yep.
But yeah, Lissy is really important. Like, because if we want to get answers, she's.
Yeah. All right. So include her on the invite.
So who has her contact information?
I have it.
Okay.
I'll send that to you.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I have another call. I'm 2 minutes
I'm sorry
late.
this went late.
All right.
If you've never been on a call with me before, now you know it'll always take forever, but it's always fun.
It is. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.